this point, we're going to cut the shortening into the flour. So you can go crazy manipulating the shortening and the flour together, because like we said before, gluten development is a huge problem when making baked goods, because it can make your baked goods tough. It's not a problem right now because gluten is not developed until I have 3 things going for me: the starch, the manipulation, and liquid. We don't have any liquid in here, so gluten is not being developed. So I'm going to do a really good job distributing this shortening. Go crazy with it. So you want your flour mixture to look like cornmeal, essentially. Little itty bitty pea-sized pieces. Now, in most recipes, the amount of water added is usually a range of water for pie crust recipes. The reason we do a range of water is because it is all dependent, the amount that we add, on the humidity in the air. So if it's really, really, really humid, that's going to affect your pie crust. So you'll have to add less water. This recipe doesn't give you a range, but it works. It works every time. It's magic. But traditionally, when you add your water to your pie crust, it is ready when you're mixing it and you're drizzling it in at the same time, and your dough just leaves the sides of the bowl. It's going to look a little bit dry and not super wet. Mistake is usually to add too much water. You overdevelop the gluten when you add too much water. Split an egg in half. So I'm going to crack it into a liquid measuring cup. Then I'm going to look down here. Look at that. That's 1/4 of a cup. We know that 1/4 of a cup has 4 tablespoons in it. So like I said before, half an egg is 2 tablespoons. Now to get this to measure properly, I have to whisk it up really good. I'm going to take that other half or 2 tablespoons and use it for something else. Let's see, half an egg, a tablespoon of vinegar, and then we fill it up the rest of the way to make half a cup. It says to make 1 cup, but we're only making half recipe. So I'm going to grab, oh, I have it right here, my tablespoon measurer. Since this was 1/4 of a cup, which is 4 tablespoons, I can just measure out 2 tablespoons here. I have my half an egg left. Then I'm going to add my half a tablespoon. Now I do have half a tablespoon, but in class we do not. So we usually do, since a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons, we do 1.5 teaspoons to measure out half a tablespoon. Okay. Now it says that it wants us to fill it the rest of the way with water to get to a whole cup, but since we're doing a half recipe, half a cup. All right, we got it. Mix it up. Add a dash of salt and stir. My dash of salt is going to be 1 shake. There we go. No, 2 shakes. The salt in this recipe works as a preservative. Have you ever wondered why when you make homemade Play-Doh it starts to mold? Or why it has a bunch of salt in it? Well, that's to preserve it. So that's the same concept when we're making pie crusts. It also adds flavor, obviously. So we're supposed to add this to our flour mixture. And we're going to mix it with the wooden spoon. Oh boy. Now, this is where we're adding the liquid. So, what did I say about gluten development? You don't want to go crazy with the kneading or the mixing right now. You just want it to hold together. Take a look. Now this is a wetter dough than that dough that you make. This is more of a traditional recipe. It's not what I described before where it's going to look really dry and possibly crumbly. Okay, let's get all of this out of the way so we can roll out our dough.
I tried purposely not to go crazy with the mixing. We don't want to overwork the gluten. So now I'm going to just kind of bring it into a ball. I'm going to stick it on my floured surface. I'm going to make it nice and flat. I'm going to add some flour on top. And I'm going to add flour to my rolling pin. And I will add flour throughout if it seems like it is starting to stick. So you want to go from the inside out. Inside out. I don't use these because I feel like it gives me more control when I use it this way. You want to be inside out so that you can get it as even as you possibly can in thickness. And of course, I want this to turn into a circle, not a rectangle. Okay, so we have a little bit of sticking happening, so we can kind of go over our pie crust and our rolling pin. Now, I don't want to stretch the dough as I'm rolling it out, because stretching the dough makes it shrink back on itself. I don't know if you've ever created a pie before and you've noticed that all of a sudden you bring this beautiful pie out of the oven and it is not the shape of the pie pan, like it's shrunk in a little bit. Well, that's because you stretched it while you were rolling it out or while you were transferring it to the pie pan. Now, I can guarantee you, when I go to try to get this off the counter, it's going to be stuck to the counter. You know what? I don't care. I don't care that it's stuck to the counter. I have a good crust with a good pie dough. It's nice and sturdy and strong. But I have to do something special to get it off that counter, which I'll show you. So you're probably wondering, I wonder if that pie crust is big enough yet. Seems like she's been rolling for a while. Well, it might be. One way to find out is to take your pie pan, stick it on your crust. It should be bigger than the pie pan by the amount of this. So this is about 2 inches. So this needs to be bigger than my pie pan right here by 2 inches. So I'd say this is about 1 inch, so 1 inch bigger than my pie pan. See where I'm coming with this? So we need to go a little bit more. We don't have to go crazy more. I'm going to go a little bit more flour. You can see that it's just kind of like a dusting. I'm not going crazy adding that flour because when you add too much flour, you're changing the recipe. You're changing the flour amount that you've added to that recipe. And I don't want to change the flour amount that I'm adding to my recipe. Okay, so I'm going to say this is ready. We are going to get this up off the counter. Now, like I said before, I have a trick to getting it off the counter because I can guarantee you this is stuck. First, I'm going to use the rolling pin to help me, but I need to make sure it's nice and floured up so that this does not stick to my pie crust. Second, we are going to bring our pie pan closer to us because we're going to need this. And I'm also going to stir our filling, which is looking nice and thick, still too thick or runny for adding to our pie, but nice and beautiful, thick. Ooh. I think my husband was angling for me to make his favorite dessert. Okay, so this is the pastry scraper. We've used this many times. We've talked about what this does. So this shouldn't be new to any of my students. But we are going to go underneath this pie dough, and we are going to start helping it to come off of the counter.
We are successfully off the counter. So again, if I had just pulled that off of there, there's no way this would have come out nice. And that's where many people screw pie crusts up, because they don't realize that, yes, it's okay that this is going to get stuck on the counter. It's okay that this might not be the prettiest thing in the world. I'll show you how to fix mistakes as we roll this back out, because I'm sure there will be a few. So get this unstuck. We're going to roll it, being careful not to stretch our dough. So look at that. That broke. I don't know if you can see that. That's okay. I'm not worried about that. So I'm going to carefully place this into my pie pan so that it's not stretching any of the dough. Because remember, we talked about stretching the dough, meaning that you are going to cause this to shrink. So whatever I do, I don't want to stretch this dough. But I am going to use my hands to pat it. And to mold it to the shape of the pan. Just no stretching. Now this area right here, this is going to get fixed by all of this dough that I'm going to patch in on that spot. I have some air bubbles. That's okay. I just had to push them out. There we go. So we are molded to the shape of the pan. No stretching, so this shouldn't shrink in on itself. If I had more holes all over, I could take this, pull it off, and then patch it into wherever it needs to go. It'll mold just perfectly to it and make it look like you never had a problem in the first place. Take my butter knife, and I'm going to just use the pan as my guide to go around here and cut off the excess. Now we are done. Look at this beautiful pie crust. Oh my goodness. Like I said before, this Amish pie crust recipe I have, foolproof. Foolproof. Just don't go crazy stirring it once you've added that water, and it's good to go.